Okay, yes, you hear the music. That means it's time once again for the Bees of Boxing with, quite frankly, the best. We're going to throw another B out here. The best looking duo that talks about boxing on this channel. This is what I'm going to say to you folks right now. I see Steve Swift over here is gloating a little bit with his what I think it says his LFC luxurious fried chicken shirt. Or if that's is it no, that's not what that
It,
means,
it,
Steve.
it, it doesn't quite stand for that, although
Oh,
it's tasty this season. Tasty. I have been today, Follocks, to the parade to bring the Premiership back to the place where it should be,
yeah.
Liverpool. And
All right.
I understand some people have been injured at that parade, and prayers to them. I was at the parade before it officially started, so I didn't know about that till I got home, but it was fantastic to be there. And even though it was raining, and it's still raining, I can hear. Um, it was great. We didn't mind the drizzle. Didn't mind
All
the
right.
drizzle because it was very important to bring that trophy back down.
Well, listen, I once also had a bunch of shirts like that I used to hand out to people that just said ladies find Chris, and then on the back it said super awesome. But there was only two of them, and my mom and my aunt got both. So, anyways, Steve, did you watch some boxing this past weekend? And were you or were you not impressed?
Yes, I was impressed by some of it, Tidster, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't impressed by one fight in particular because you had one job and you failed. More of that in a minute. But yeah, the Josh Taylor and Echo fight was just, and people can say what they like about, well, it's a weight thing, and Josh might not have, he might not be sure because of the weight and all of that. It was a beautifully judged, very close fight. I would have given it to Echo because I think he came on stronger in the final rounds. But what an attritional, superb piece of work. And that's the kind of fight that boxing needs at the moment with all the shenanigans and hoo-ha that we've got.
Yeah, that was a fight that, listen, I judged it kind of the same way. I think that Josh Taylor kind of gave it away after about the sixth round, a little bit, and that seemed to just really work out. It was a fight. It was a fight that was fantastic. It was the boxing of boxing, which was fantastic. The not the co-main event, but the feature. I guess that's called the feature fight. Um, Listen, we've been talking about this kid for a long time. Moses Aituama is a special kind of beast, and it literally popped me like I was a 10-year-old at a wrestling match and just got to witness like Hulk Hogan touch me or something like that. And I literally jumped up and was back and forth across the room because I felt bad for his opponent. When you hit somebody and you spin them like a top before they fall, the problem is his opponent just became a meme for the rest of his career.
Yeah, and Mr. Balogun was the right fighter for Moses Atama at the time, this time, and props. Feel quite street and gangster when I'm saying that. Props, man, to Frank Warren for bringing Moses on slowly. Now, there's lots of talk about, he should fight, he should fight. Frank Warren will do what he needs to do with Moses, and that's a great fight just to get him through to the next to another level. But yes, those were some heavy, heavy knockdowns, and that's a worry, isn't it? But he had, no issues and a wonderful showing from that gentleman.
Yeah. And the only hiccup that I think that there was what you were talking about earlier in a fight where apparently, listen, Steve Swift, we've been to independent wrestling shows. We've been to small independent boxing events. Go ahead. Answer me this truthfully. Who is it that's usually in charge of the bell?
Well, it would usually be at wrestling shows. It's the person who would, you know, it would be that person who is announcing and commentating. It would often be that way. But is it
Or
that way at a boxing show of this magnitude?
it's usually the most special person in the crowd, we're going to say, that gets the dubious honor of being the bell ringer at independent shows. That's the thing. And clearly that's what they did. I think that there might have been a make-a-wish that happened during one of these fights, because I don't know, was I the only one that saw that there was no bell?
There was no, for your all three, all the strange woody sounds you get on 10 seconds. And I thought, just before that punch came, I thought, right, that's the end of the round. We're 5 seconds in, and not only was it that, but as the commentator, and it was quite poor commentary, I thought, said he got up like the Undertaker. He sprung up at 6, and I don't know what the ref. I mean, what the ref should have done was said, okay, that's a knockdown, but I'm not ruling it as one because I noticed that it's out of time. No, judges, forget that. What an absolute travesty. And I suspect that Mr. Frank Warren will have already taken that in hand.
Now,
in his own special way.
It brings me to this week's topic, Steve, because we're talking about these kinds of things happening, and we're talking about knockouts like we saw in the Moses fight. The thing is there's been a history in boxing where we've seen the two of these things happen together, and when that happens, it's very bad. We're talking about the biggest cheaters in boxing history, in our opinion. We may not hit all of them because, listen, there is a huge rainbow spectrum of what we could classify as cheating. I'm going to preface this entire conversation right now with saying that steroids are off the table, because I am a firm believer of that. Just because you take a substance like a steroid, you still have to put in the work to make that effective. So it kind of balances out an argument, and that's a different argument altogether. What we're talking about here is we're talking about people that absolutely, definitively cheat during the boxing competitions, during the fight, right? And I don't know. I say we go back and forth on this one. Okay? I'll say one. We'll talk about it. You say one. What do you think?
Yeah, but first of all, I'd like to make 2 points here.
Okay.
I think we're looking at 2 separate kinds of, in inverted commas, cheating. Or as you guys across the pond like to say, cheaters. For me, that would be an animal that runs fast. But cheating was, we don't use it in this country. We don't, although we are beginning to use it quite a lot. And I get very angry about it. But anyway, there are 2 kinds of cheating in my view. So there is what is thought to be legitimate cheating, which is in the general run of a match. And there is what we'll call cheating, where it's clear and someone says, I think you should be suspended for this. That.
Right. Yes. That is definitely a true statement, because there's going to be some names. There's going to be some names that we're going to say here that are going to make you go, oh, wait, what are you talking about? That's an impossibility, right? But let's throw it out there right out the gate. I'll give you a big one right out the gate that everybody's going to, an easy one is cheating. And I'm going to say it, Mike Tyson, because that is a blatant cheat in the world of boxing when you bite another man's ear off, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is, and it's happened before, not biting the ear off, but clamping down on the shoulder. We're going to talk about somebody else who did that as well. Clamp the teeth into the shoulder. This has happened throughout boxing history, and it fits in with that kind of carnival. Can you beat him? Who wants to step right up and see if he can beat this man? So, and it fits in with oh, well, we had 37 rounds and each one was 10 minutes long. So, yes, but also that is a cheat, but it also it's born of a frustration, isn't it? So there's a sadness with this because it's about, I don't think that I can beat this man. And we know that his opponent was notoriously tough to beat. Now, I have to tell you, we have to talk about his opponent as well, don't we? We have to
Yes,
talk
we do.
about Mr. H, Mr.
Yes,
Holyfield, don't we?
yes,
Because
we do.
first of all, let's talk about this bite, which was probably, if he'd have nibbled on his earlobe and ripped it a bit, that would be different. But because he actually took a lot of the ear off and spat it out onto the mat, that's the extraordinary thing. But it's the frustration of, I can't get the handle on this guy. So I'm just absolutely, it's a schoolyard thing, isn't it?
I think what he should have done is, that's where he went wrong. Tyson should have just swallowed the piece of ear. Then prove it. Prove that I bit
Yeah.
his ear off. Where's the ear? Where's the proof? I mean, for all I know, he could have showed up to this fight with a fake piece of ear. It already happened. And this is a previous injury that the commission didn't get. Tyson messed up on this one. That's what I'm
It
saying.
could. It could have been a Play-Doh situation, and we might have had a sieve and someone sitting by his toilet the next few days, but we would have all been bored by then. Would have all been bored
Right?
by him saying, "There's no ear in here, no ear," and then
But I mean,
and
but
then
that's a blatant cheat, right?
it is.
100%. What do you got, Steve?
Well, let's talk about him at the Holyfield then, because this
Perfect.
feeds into the second part of this, and there are a few other people we can talk about here, which is his use of that rather large cranium of his. Because, there is a picture, and I've seen it in doing the research. I did some research for this. Doing the
Yeah.
research, I'd forgotten this. The huge egg on one side of Hasim Rahman's head, after a fight with the gentleman, and it's the use of the head. And the thing is, I had to put this to you, Tidstone. Is it cheating if the ref doesn't call it?
So, what year are we talking about here? And this is why I say this, Steve, because you know as well as I do that it seems to be more prominent now that a lot of times in the world of boxing, we just accept that clashes of heads are going to happen. Cuts from clashes of heads are going to happen. But more so now, what we're seeing is the boxing in the fights that the referee is acknowledging it, pointing it out to the judges. This wasn't a cut from a punch. This was a cut from a headbutt, from a clash of heads, incidental, whatever. Right. So now, if we're talking about when Evander Holyfield was fighting, I mean, he literally would lead with his head a lot of times, and a lot of people would, because he would do it in tight on these close, this clinch fighting game, when it's just kind of you're moving, and he would move his shoulders with his head so that it would just get that full body motion. It's like, well, I'm just trying to work it out. You're telling me to box it out. I'm just trying to box it out. Where my head goes, I have no control of that. What?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And also, all the stuff that feeds into, well, he's a slighter gentleman. So, he's actually he's not massively built. He's not enormous. So actually, I need to get a bit of an advantage here, and that will be my movement. And I need to get in close because I like working in close. Yeah, that's exactly, in my view, as far as the business of boxing goes, and this is part of the business of boxing, if the ref don't see it, if you don't see it and call it, then the same thing I feel about, you could say, and I don't think this is the case before we say anything, Daniel Dubois cheated against Alexander Usyk because the ref did not say, okay, here's your shorts. I saw this the other day, actually. Was it in the Josh Taylor fight? Here's okay. Here's not okay. So below here is not okay.
Right.
So the ref didn't say that in the Usyk fight. So, when you're saying it's not below the belt, it is. And that's cheating. And it's not his fault. And he didn't do it on purpose, but it's cheating. You use the referee. And it's very similar. I feel sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that, as attorneys say, well, I want a certain kind of jury.
Right.
If I've got a female defendant and I've got mainly male jurors, I'd like mainly female jurors. I presume that camps go, I know that referee. He's going to let us work dirty. He's going to let us
100
work out. That happens.
100%. You know for a fact the referees that are doing this, and you know who's working your fight and what the referee expects. Also, there's meetings before the fights where the referee's going around telling both camps, I expect this, I expect this, I will pull you apart for this. I don't want to see any of this. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of that comes from history in boxing, because you know as well as I do, these things that we're talking about could be skewed as advantages. Things like lacing, things like shoulders, things like throwing a shoulder into the face, things like, I don't know, following through a little bit too much, and maybe that elbow comes cutting across a little bit because that's how you throw with the hip. I'm going to say it right now. Floyd Mayweather is a dirty, rotten cheat. Okay? Let's just get it out there in the open right now, because that style, if we're talking about a pugilist fight, that style, that Philly shuffle that he had and the throwing of elbows constantly, constantly worked in his favor.
Yes, and I agree with you. We said this when we spoke about this briefly at the end of the last program off air. We said, yeah, and you said, well, thank you, because I feel the same way. We both agree with this. I don't have a massive issue with it because it's a down and dirty kind of. It's a down and dirty style, and I don't have an issue with that down and dirty style. You know what's going to happen if you are an opponent. You think, right, follows through with the arm, absolutely. So we know we're going to get this. We need to try and combat that in some way. So and also some refs will let you fight, some refs won't. And we've got many an occasion when a fighter has said, wouldn't let me fight my usual game because he was always trying to separate us, or he was always saying no punching at the back of the head and put that knife down, that kind of thing. So he wouldn't let me fight my usual fight. Well, this is the same thing with Mayweather. I have no issues with it because he was a consummate fighter, but he was a complete fighter because he also fought dirty. So
Yes.
I kind of feel that fighters need sometimes just to get down and dirty. And it is a mental game as well. So you'll know that, which is great.
Is this a case you think that, like, because he's one of the smartest fighters ever in the game because of it, on both ends, on the boxing end and on the business end, not so much on the banking end, uh, but all of those other B's of boxing, he's pretty darn good at it, right? Also being a boss, apparently he's very good at that too, and buying strip clubs. But do you think that this is a case because if you can learn what the rules are, how you can manipulate them into your favor until they come to you, like you said, until the referee says something or sees it or the rules actually change, we can't do anything about it, because at one time things like lacing, what I'm talking about, for those of you that don't know, it's when you hit the person with the bottom part of your glove where the laces are, with the intention of trying to cut them, because that will cut somebody very easily, or pulling your hand back into your glove a little bit and just leaving it almost like throwing a pillow, like in a pillow fight. You'd be surprised how much more that impacts a shot when you get a slap in the ear like that instead of a punch. Do you think for 1 second that these are intentional things? Are these learned things? Or are they just simple oversights of I'm just in a fight?
Well, let me draw your attention to the punch that put Balogun down from Moses Atama. It was a slap. The first punch really upset him, and it was a slap. And that wasn't, I mean, you can say, okay, he went for a punch and Balogun moved, and I thought he slapped him. I thought he slapped him around the side of the face, by the ear and the temple, and he went. I thought that. But you can say, oh, it's just it's just in the real in the tension of the fight, and everybody wants to fight, and that punch perhaps for another, a fighter might say the punch was at the end of the round and just after the bell because I was excited. As in wrestling, you have a 5 count to get out of there, so you know what the rules are. So if you want to do something, you're a 5 count. And if the referee is not stopping you, let's talk about a referee like Mills Lane. Mills Lane, famously, you can do it. He'll let you fight. He'll let you do it. He'll let
Yeah.
you. The general
Yeah.
feeling. So you can do whatever you like. So if I am a fantastic tactician and I'm in and out of there and I'm fighting someone who is going to swarm me, well, I'm in trouble. So, yes, I
Mhm.
believe you do learn those rules and I believe you do know. And I believe all that kind of stuff. Yes, pulling the hand back and all of that. It's got to be known and it's got to be part of the technique. And I personally don't have a real issue with it. I don't think it's cheating. I think it's kidology and I think it's part of the business of boxing.
100%. 100% agree. Who else you got, Steve?
Um, well, let's talk. I mean, let's talk about then. Let's talk. Oh, well, first of all, actually, let's
Mhm.
talk about the middle ground of this, which is
Okay.
just people, bad boys in the ring. Andrew Galota. Let's
Yes.
talk about
Yes.
Galota because before we talk about the real kind of well, you definitely cheated, didn't you? There's the kind of mid thing, which is okay, low blows, biting the picking up and throwing, all of that. I mean,
Sure.
Galota, but the thing with Galota is that what people say is, well, it ruined his career. He could
Hmm.
have had a better career if he hadn't succumbed to that. So I have to ask you, do you think this is him calculating this, or is it just in the absolute excitement of the fight?
With the amount of low blows that he threw, no, he didn't want to be there. And he was going to do everything that he could to inflict as much pain as possible. That's when the boxing becomes a fight for a guy. And he just wanted out of there, plain and simple. Right. Because if you think about it, that happens a lot more often than people, let's talk about one of the greatest boxers of all time that people talk about, old time boxing. If you're going to go into your history, you're going to talk about a guy named Jack Dempsey, infamous rabbit puncher all the time, right? So the greatest ones we're talking about, it's the greatest of all times that isn't named Rocky and or Sugar Ray Robinson. And by Rocky, I mean Marciano, not that. Okay, I can't say shit about Philadelphia. I said I wouldn't. They're my team, but he's not a real friggin' boxer. People, take the statue down. I'm just saying. Um, all of the greats did a little something, something to manipulate and bend the rules. Others tried, but not as well. Obviously.
Yeah, but if you get if you don't get caught, it ain't cheating, folks. So famously, Bernard Hopkins, you know, quite said, "I use all sorts of things, use
Mhm,
all sorts of." It's kidology, but on an
mhm.
extraordinary scale. So he said he used all sorts of things and wasn't picked up for that,
Right
and was a
now,
great defensive fighter, and that's partially why. But he admitted it. It
yeah,
was part of his game, and
yeah,
so if you don't get it picked up by the referee, you're absolutely fine, in my view.
100%. Now, then there's the other side of it. There's the absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, you had premeditated murder on your hands. You were going into this to cause damage because you knew already that you weren't going to do anything of any kind of substance coming out of this fight. And we're going to talk about two of them right now. The most infamous one, obviously, is the one that we'll talk about first, I think, here, because Louis Resto and the Billy Collins Jr. situation is the absolute epitome of what that should actually never, ever happen in the world of boxing. Billy Collins Jr., some would say the beating that he took from Louis Resto is what caused him to take his life. And that is beyond any kind of control. It's a mental thing. One of the problems I have with it was the fact that Louis Resto did time for this. right? They were found guilty, him and his trainer, for taking out what was about what, an ounce or so of padding, which is a lot of padding in a glove. And not only that, Louis Resto later admitted in life, apparently, when he wanted to apologize to Billy Collins' widow, said that it wasn't just the padding that was taken out. No, no. There was also plastered hand wraps, because the hand wraps were never recovered, he said. And even he said that his coach, his trainer, would have these pills. These pills. I mean, it's clenbuterol, if you're asking me, because it would help him breathe better. And he would put these pills in the water and drink the water, and it would help him breathe better. That's clenbuterol, ladies and gentlemen. That is a big time old school thing, that would actually help and not be picked up on tests back then. What do you think of Louis Resto, Steve?
This is a different matter, isn't it? Entirely.
It is.
I mean, this is illegality. So this is not looking at the rules and finding a way I can get around that. This is, well, there's the rules, and I just need to win. We just need to win. It's cash is king, isn't it? It's I need to win this fight, and I'll fight this. I'll win in whatever way I can. Plus, I probably don't need to worry too much about my opponent. Don't really need to read up or watch tape or anything else, because actually, I'm just going to do this. It's extraordinary, and as I keep saying, anybody can lose their livelihood, their health, and their life when they step into the ring. Just without that kind of situation, that's an appalling situation. And his trainer was done, wasn't he? And he was done because they thought he might not know about it, but that he should have known about it, because he's the one paying the man.
I mean, absolutely, he knew about it. Come on, give your head a shake. That entire camp knew what was going on. There's some speculation, and here's what I would firmly believe in these instances, because you know as well as I do. Here's the business end, the boxing end, the betting end of boxing. And some would speculate, because Louis Resto was not a big puncher. Louis Resto was about to get his ass handed to him, because Billy Collins was a knockout dude, tough as nails, undefeated fighter, right? Who should have very easily handled Louis Resto. So some would say that there was some money on this one. And I mean, unless somebody says otherwise, I got to believe that. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I think that you can bet on everything. I've been known to wake up at 3:00 in the morning and bet on like Lithuanian female volleyball, just because, I'm going through a thing and I'm doing some degenerate boxing or betting. Same thing. But I firmly believe that that was the instance. And because of it, Louis Resto never boxed again. He destroyed his entire career, could never make another dime off of it, until I think he ended up working as a cornerman, finally got a license, because once one state gets rid of your license, especially for something like this, all of the states kind of follow suit, unless you're the state of Texas, because that brings us to one Mr. Margarito. One. Am I right?
Just a minute, Mr. Margarito. There's some white substance oozing from between your fingers. What might that be? Why, it looks like plaster of Paris, sir.
Unbelievable.
That's perhaps what Sugar Shane Mosley's trainer said.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that fight, it didn't help. So not only did he get beat up by Sugar Shane Mosley, he got exposed, and then rather than doing what the boxing industry did to Louis Resto, somehow, some way, he just got a 1-year suspension, and then was right back into the ring, because the world, karma, had better plans for him, and they were like, this Miguel Cotto guy, and maybe this Manny Pacquiao guy, they're gonna stand up and speak up for the boxing community, maybe do some little self-preservation in this case, and just beat the living piss out of him. Unbelievable. I loved every minute of it.
Well, yes, and strangely, and I don't quite understand how this happened, but Mr. Margarito lost his punching power later on in his career. I don't know how that happened. I just don't know. Maybe it was a different training regime. I've no idea. Maybe he hurt his hand and I don't know. But he lost that knockout punching power.
Yeah, unbelievable how that happens when you don't have a cast, because a plaster of Paris is the same stuff that they use to make a cast. You break your wrist, you break your hand, you put a cast on. Anybody who's ever broken something in school when they were a kid or knew somebody, because I've never have had a cast on. I've had a double compound fracture in my left leg with both bones sticking out the front, and the flesh was all wide open, but they couldn't put a cast on it because the flesh was so wide open. But I've never had a cast. But anybody who's known somebody with a cast can attest to it. Boy, you get hit with that thing. Oh, it's lights out. You're done for. And you know this before you become a professional boxer.
But how do you? But the thing is, what I want to know, as the team, wrapping those hands, you're going to have the corner of the opponent's corner come in and watch you wrap the hands.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work? The thing of, well, I've seen something between your fingers, which actually happened, didn't it? That's reported. I've seen something oozing out. Well, you're bound to see that, aren't you? I mean, did Margarito's corner think that it was saying, "Oh no, it's just some kind of unguent I put on. We just, we want to moisturize the hands to make them look nice."
Yeah, it's an ointment because I'm having a reaction to the gauze.
How do you you're going to be seen doing it, don't you? It's not as if you can say, "Let's just do this," and then someone's going to come in and say, "We've already wrapped these. Yeah, checks out, no problem." They're going to say, "Unwrap them again while I watch you, and I want to sign off for that on the wraps." So the excuse has got to be perfect, and if it looks like plaster of Paris and it smells like plaster of Paris, it sorting well is. I don't understand how people think they can get away with it.
And I don't understand how any commission anywhere didn't have an equipment inspector in that room the entire time, because that's what's supposed to happen. I know firsthand here in Ontario, they adopt the New Jersey rules, okay, for all of their boxing stuff. And I have a very close friend who actually is an inspector, an equipment inspector for the commission. They're in that room. And even if it's not wrapped the right way, like you can't do you can't twist the tape when you're wrapping it. There's certain things that you can't do. You can't, wrap all the way up to the middle of your arm and then fold it back over. So you have your little small, little, titmouse hands, all of a sudden become the size of Brock Lesnar's. Yeah. Titmouse. You know what that is, Steve? That's a bird.
I do. And you know what? I think that's a great name for a Steve Titmouse Hands Swift.
This is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? But you can't. There's certain things that you can and cannot do, and they'll get coaches. You can get coaches all of the time, right? Like a lot of coaches that are hired to bring their guys up from South America, right? Ecuadorians who are just like out there to look good and take a beating. But these old school coaches will try every trick, even the whole, I don't speak enough English. This is just what we do. And I've been told, I know this firsthand, that, nope, you got to take that off and redo it. You know what you're doing. Take that off and redo it. Okay. And then they do it.
Does your equipment inspection friend actually look at the athletic supporter just to make sure there's no itching powder in there, or hot sauce? So, I mean, is that something? Because that would certainly get you moving in the ring, wouldn't it?
The old cup check is what you're asking. Yeah, listen, I'm sure that if it got to the point here, think about this, Steve. This is the thing and how rules work in all of these sports and how new rules get adapted. It's the same kind of thing is oh, I didn't know the coffee was hot. Oh, I didn't know. I thought cruise control meant I could go have a shower in my Winnebago. Like there's a reason that they make these rules. And in boxing, when some of these rules come up, you have to look at it and go, well, you made this because somebody did this already. And some of these are just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, then let me go on the. Well, I'm already on the record as saying that in that case, then Devonta Davis cheated in his last fight
Explain.
because he took a knee and went and got his sodding face wiped. You know that. I mean, although I suppose I'm talking to myself here, aren't I? Because I'm saying, Steve, did the referee do anything? No. Well, he got away with it, so it's all right. But actually, but it's not, though, is it? But it is. This is the terrible thing. I can't work it out, Tipster,
But
because
this is
the
what we
referee
said.
didn't do it. Yeah.
No. And this is what we said. This is what we said about the greats. Where does Gervonta Davis in his rankings, in his fight life, he's definitely one of the greatest of all time right now. Right? And this is what we said: the Mayweathers, the Muhammad Ali's. I'm going to throw it out there and say Muhammad Ali. Even here we go, ladies and gentlemen, because some of the things that he would do, he was a rabbit puncher as well. And I get it. I get some of the tricks of the trade and why they do them, especially when you consider how small of a guy Muhammad Ali was. He just liked to have a couple of extra sugary treats because he should have been a cruiserweight. He should have been a light heavyweight, not a heavyweight.
Yes, and also, it's not been proven, but the allegation that, let's just loosen those ropes a little so I can lean a bit further back, and that takes some of the sting out of Uncle George's punches, won't it? So George Foreman won't be able to beat me up as much. There's an allegation, and you use what you can, don't you? And nobody would have surely been thinking, certainly in the absolute furore of the Rumble in the Jungle, all the stuff that was going on, nobody would have thought, so I just check the ropes again. I'll just go out and do that. You use an advantage, and sometimes I think we're saying there's a sliding scale here, aren't we?
I mean, but and then there's also the other part. There's the other person, the unspoken cheat as you were, because in those instances, it's not Muhammad Ali who's going out there and checking the ropes. He's not out there twisting the turnbuckles and loosening them up, right? It's the Don Kings of the world. It's the shady promoters from years and years that we know about that are doing these things. These are the behind the curtain. These are the Wizard of Oz meetings. These are those kinds of talks. Am I right? Like, this is what happens. And that's the bullshit of boxing, if you ask me, 100%.
But you also need to throw into that Manny Pacquiao is WBC number 5 ranked. Well, how has that happened then? How is that happening now? Now I know he's a qualified contender because he's won it in the past. Mm-hmm. That's in your rules, is it? Well, okay then. But I'm not saying Manny Pacquiao's a cheat. Well, of course I'm not. That's not the case. But I'm just saying, well, how are you getting to be number 5 contender then? It's a murky situation. And part of it, and actually, it's one of the reasons why I embrace it. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't watch boxing again, because you'd think, well, it's not pure. And part of the reason why I watch boxing is because it isn't pure.
It isn't. It isn't. At the end of the day, it's a fist fight. That's what you're in there doing. You're in there fist fighting. Nothing but your hands and your ability to inflict as much damage on that other person as possible to try to win a contest. Some people still look at it as a contest. Some people, the Galatas of the world, look at it as an actual fight. Like, there's no difference between the way that Andrew Galata would fight in a bar or the way that he would fight in the ring. You have fighters that have no business being in the boxing ring, but make a lot of money getting beat up. Randall Cobb, I'm looking in your direction. You have a lot of guys that think they can be the best of the best, try breaking the rules and bending the rules a little bit. Adrian Broner, I'm looking in your direction. It doesn't work out for him as well. That's what I really love about boxing, is that it encompasses all of these different types of people, all of these different types of things. It's wonderful. I'm here for it. And listen, one of my favorite boxers in the world is coming up, and I'm talking about Caleb Plant, and I can't wait. I can't wait to watch me another Caleb Plant fight Steve Swift.
You've got a special part in your heart for this gentleman. It's really very sweet.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, listen, it's it, it's it's a love affair. I mean, he doesn't know it yet, uh, but it ain't the
Oh,
way you're
he does.
thinking.
He does.
Oh,
No, I told
oh,
him. I told him.
oh,
So he
oh,
knows.
well,
He said
perfect.
he's going to send you a message. He didn't say what the
Yeah,
message would be, and he didn't say how the message was going to be sent to you. So I'd be
yeah.
very careful if I were you.
I'm sure it probably is two words with an and in the middle. Cease and desist. Okay. which you know what, Steve? That's what we're going to do here now. Is we are going to cease and desist from this talk. I mean, listen, for all of you, I don't know even if we touched enough of who the cheaters are in the world of boxing, but those are some of the biggest ones, some of the biggest stories, some of the biggest scandals out there. Then we didn't even get into the world of steroids. We didn't even get into any of the doping allegations, because that could be a different topic altogether. We could talk doping allegations on why they did it, because, and I'll give you a little teaser, Steve, because now this is in my brain, and I think I do want to talk about this. Maybe next week, maybe the week after, we'll do some stuff, because I'm going to mention one fight to you and the reason when he got busted, why I think he got busted. And I'm talking about when Canelo Alvarez got busted and he popped hot and it interfered and it pushed back that original Triple G fight. I think he did it on purpose. I think he popped hot on purpose because he wasn't ready for that fight, and it was going to do damage to his record.
Well, that's a big statement to make, Tidster. And we really do need to talk about that at some point,
100%.
because you constantly surprise me, and that's the surprise this week for me.
Well, there you go. Listen, if anybody's looking for surprises, go check out World Weary Guy 1 and all of the great things that Steve Swift is doing over there. I mean, the constant reviews of music, movies, boxing, when we're not talking about it here. He is a man on a mission. I don't know what that mission is, but he is a fishing musician. I appreciate the hell out of you, Steve. I think it's fantastic.
Well, thank you, and I've dropped a review this week of a movie called Popeye's Revenge. So I watched it. I watched it on Saturday night with my friend, and I really, really wish I hadn't. But, but I'd like to tell you all about it.
Does this fall into line with the whole Mickey Mouse and 100 years past? So it's like Popeye the Slayer now instead of the
It is.
Sailor. Yeah.
We've
Okay.
we've had Popeye the Slayer, man. I reviewed that a few weeks ago. We've also got Shiv Me Timbers coming up, which is another Popeye that's come out. And it's called, because the first one was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It's called the Pooniverse, and that's the right way to call it.
Yes, yes, yes. The shitosphere, the Pooniverse, whatever you want to call it. And I listen. I am all for every single one of those movies, Steve. It is a hidden pleasure of mine, a guilty pleasure, if you were. I love them. They're so garbage. And I go all the way back to a kid of going and renting Basket Case, so that I could watch it. Like, I love the worst of the worst, Ghoulies, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, like all of it. Just wonderful, wonderful stuff. So,
It, it
and
it's brilliant, and it's still out there, Tidster, still
it
making
is.
it.
It is. It's wonderful. And you know who else is still making it? Me and you. Me and you. And those are the words. So, to all of those of you who are out there listening, please hit that like, hit that subscribe. Thank you so much for, as usual. I'm Chris. He's Steve. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, I think some people said if you ain't lying, you ain't trying. If you ain't cheating, you ain't winning. But one thing you got to remember, tuck your chin.